they talk about the roles we have. No, but that doesn't mean one role is more important. Yes, I've been high up on the mountain. I've been blessed. The only thing I wrote on the cover of Training Day was the wages of sin is death.
What if I told you that one of Hollywood's greatest living legends didn't rise to the top all by himself? Denzel Washington, two-time Oscar winner, cultural icon, and the man behind unforgettable performances in Malcolm X, Training Day, and Fences, has always credited others for shaping his journey. Behind the calm confidence and commanding presence we see on screen are a handful of actors who either inspired him to dream bigger, mentored him when he was just starting out, or challenged him directly on set. And some of the names might surprise you. Today we're pulling back the curtain on the 7 actors who had the biggest impact on Denzel Washington's legendary career. Before Denzel Washington became the powerhouse actor we know today, he was a young student searching for direction. And in that search, one name stood out above all others: James Earl Jones. Denzel has repeatedly called Jones his Northern Star during college, the person he looked up to when he was still trying to figure out if acting was truly his path. In his own words, Denzel once said, "He was who I wanted to be." That's not a casual compliment, it's a confession of just how deeply Jones influenced him. Think about what James Earl Jones represented in American theater at that time. This was a man with a thunderous voice, a commanding stage presence, and a rare humility that set him apart from everyone else. He wasn't just Darth Vader's voice or the wise Mufasa from The Lion King. Long before those iconic roles, Jones was dominating Broadway, showing young black actors that you could be both powerful and purposeful on stage without ever losing your authenticity. For Denzel, seeing someone like Jones wasn't just about admiring talent. It was proof. Proof that a black actor could carry that much authority, win respect, and change the culture of American theater. Jones didn't just perform, he embodied dignity and strength in every role, and that combination lit a fire under a young Denzel Washington. What's even more telling is the way Denzel describes him. He was powerful, he was present, he was purposeful, he was humble. Those 4 words, powerful, present, purposeful, humble, could just as easily describe Denzel himself today. It's as if the qualities he admired in Jones became the very qualities he worked to build into his own career. And here's the fascinating part. Jones wasn't just a distant figure Denzel admired from afar. Their careers would later intersect, and Denzel would go on to publicly honor him, calling him one of the greatest actors ever to grace Broadway. It's a full circle moment. The student not only becoming the master, but also showing the world that he never forgot who lit the path for him in the first place. But if James Earl Jones was Denzel's North Star, then the next man was his guiding light. Because unlike Jones, this legend didn't just inspire from a distance. He stepped directly into Denzel's life, offering encouragement that would change the course of his career. That man was Sidney Poitier. For Denzel, Poitier wasn't just a role model. He was living proof that a black actor could not only survive in Hollywood, but dominate it with dignity, grace, and power. Denzel has often spoken of Poitier as a mentor, a friend, and a trailblazer who opened doors for every generation that came after him. The connection between them wasn't abstract. In one of his most personal stories, Denzel recalls performing in a play when Poitier came backstage to see him. For a young actor still trying to find his footing, hearing words of encouragement from someone like Sidney Poitier was life-changing. Poitier looked him in the eye and said simply, "You know you're good." Those 4 words weren't just a compliment, they were fuel. Denzel has admitted that moment kept him going during times of doubt. A reminder that if Sidney Poitier believed in him, then maybe he truly had something worth pursuing. And Poitier's influence didn't fade with time. Decades later, when Denzel won the Academy Award for Training Day in 2002, he turned to Sidney Poitier in the audience and said, "40 years I've been chasing Sidney. I'll always be chasing you, Sidney. I'll always be following in your footsteps. There is nothing I would rather do, sir." That wasn't just a thank you. It was a confession that even at the peak of his own career, Denzel still measured himself against the standard Poitier set. Poitier's career had been about breaking barriers, carrying himself with strength when Hollywood wanted to limit him, and showing that talent combined with dignity could reshape an entire industry. Denzel took that same lesson to heart, modeling his own career, not just on critical success, but on integrity. But Sidney Poitier wasn't the only figure Denzel looked to for reassurance that his dream was possible. There was another legendary performer, someone who embodied gravitas and longevity in ways that proved an actor could command respect for decades. That man was Morgan Freeman. After James Earl Jones lit the path, and Sidney Poitier opened the doors, Denzel Washington still needed examples of longevity, actors who showed him what it meant to sustain a career built on substance, not just flash. That's where Morgan Freeman comes in. Denzel has named Freeman among the actors who influenced him, placing him alongside Jones and Poitier as one of the serious black performers he could look up to in his formative years. And it's easy to see why. By the time Denzel was building his name in theater and television, Freeman had already proven that an actor could be versatile enough to do it all: television, stage, and eventually films that became cultural landmarks. Freeman carried a sense of authority in every role he touched, whether he was playing a convict in Shawshank Redemption or a wise mentor in Lean on Me. What stood out to Denzel was more than Freeman's performances. It was his steadiness. Freeman wasn't the kind of actor who relied on hype or scandal. He was someone who let the work speak for itself. That philosophy deeply resonated with Denzel, who has built his entire career on consistency and discipline. When Denzel talks about role models, he often highlights qualities like humility, truth, and presence, values Freeman embodied in spades. Freeman also represented something bigger: possibility. He didn't break through into widespread fame until later in life, which showed Denzel that a career in acting wasn't about rushing or chasing fame. It was about honing the craft until the world couldn't ignore you. That lesson clearly left a mark on Denzel, who has often repeated that luck comes when preparation meets opportunity. So when you line them up, Jones, Poitier, and Freeman, you see a pattern: powerful voices, dignified presences, and actors who carried themselves with purpose. These were the men who shaped the foundation of Denzel Washington's own artistry. But influence doesn't stop with mentors. As Denzel's career exploded, new challenges emerged. Actors who didn't just inspire him but stood across from him, matched his energy, and pushed him to dig deeper in the heat of a performance. One of those actors was Viola Davis. When the two finally worked together in Fences 2016, audiences weren't just watching a film adaptation of August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize-winning play. They were watching two masters of the craft collide, and the result was nothing short of electric. Denzel directed the film and took on the lead role of Troy Maxson, a man weighed down by regret and bitterness. Standing across from him was Viola Davis, playing Rose, a woman both tender and unyielding, capable of standing her ground in the face of Troy's flaws. Their chemistry wasn't forced. It felt raw, lived in, and brutally honest. Critics praised Davis for matching Denzel beat for beat, and she went on to win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. But beyond awards, what mattered was the mutual respect. Denzel has often spoken about how Viola's authenticity pushes everyone around her to rise to her level. She doesn't act to impress. She acts to reveal truth. That's a philosophy Denzel himself has carried his entire career, and it's why their pairing in Fences resonated so strongly. Their connection actually went back further, to the 2010 Broadway revival of Fences, where they first performed together on stage. That production earned both of them Tony Awards, proving that lightning can strike twice, first on stage then on screen. For Denzel, working with Viola wasn't just collaboration, it was confrontation with an equal, someone who could challenge him, expose cracks in his character, and make the audience believe every single second. The power of that collaboration shows how Denzel thrives when he's tested. And no co-star tested him quite like the next one, a younger actor who in just one film went toe-to-toe with him and helped create one of the most iconic crime dramas of the 2000s. That actor was Ethan Hawke. When people talk about Denzel Washington's greatest performances, Training Day 2001 almost always comes up. The film not only earned Denzel his second Academy Award, but it also gave Ethan Hawke one of the defining roles of his career. What makes their dynamic so fascinating is how different their characters and their acting styles are, yet how perfectly they collide. Denzel plays Detective Alonzo Harris, a corrupt cop who oozes charisma and menace in equal measure. Ethan Hawke plays rookie officer Jake Hoyt, whose wide-eyed idealism gets put through the ringer during one brutal, unforgettable day. The film works because the two actors balance each other, Denzel's controlled chaos against Hawke's nervous energy. Hawke himself has said in interviews that working opposite Denzel was like being in a masterclass every single day. What's remarkable is that Hawke didn't shrink under the pressure. Despite being much younger and less decorated at the time, he went toe-to-toe with Denzel, creating tension so palpable it practically crackles off the screen. Their scenes, whether in a car, a living room, or on the streets of Los Angeles, feel alive, unscripted, dangerous. Hawke even earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a testament to how his performance didn't just hold its own, but amplified Denzel's. For Denzel, that kind of challenge was crucial. He has often said that the best acting comes from listening and reacting, and Hawke gave him plenty to react to. Their push and pull dynamic turned Training Day into more than just a crime thriller. It became a psychological battle, a clash of philosophies about power, morality, and survival. And just like Viola Davis, Hawke represented a new kind of influence, not the guiding hand of a mentor, but the fire of a peer pushing Denzel into darker, riskier territory. It showed that Denzel's greatness didn't exist in isolation. It was sharpened by the people brave enough to stand opposite him. But Training Day wasn't the only time Denzel's brilliance was heightened by a co-star. Just a few years later, he shared the screen with another powerhouse. This time in a sprawling crime epic where respect and rivalry blended seamlessly. That actor was Russell Crowe. If Training Day was a raw, intimate duel, then American Gangster 2007 was a grand chess match. In this Ridley Scott-directed crime epic, Denzel Washington took on the role of Frank Lucas, a real-life Harlem drug kingpin who built an empire on discipline and ruthlessness. His opponent on screen? Russell Crowe, playing Detective Richie Roberts, the cop determined to bring him down. What made their pairing electric was the contrast in energy. Denzel as Frank Lucas was icy, methodical, and quietly terrifying. Crowe, meanwhile, brought his trademark intensity to Roberts, a man as flawed in his personal life as he was relentless in his pursuit of justice. Unlike Training Day, where Denzel and Ethan Hawke were in almost every scene together, Denzel and Crowe spent much of American Gangster circling each other, their showdown building like a storm you knew was coming. When they finally do collide on screen, the result is cinematic dynamite. Denzel later admitted that acting opposite someone like Crowe meant he had to stay razor sharp. Crowe doesn't back down, doesn't play small. He brings the same kind of unyielding focus Denzel himself is known for. In many ways it was a clash of titans. Two Oscar winners pushing each other to elevate every line, every stare, every silence. Their partnership also highlighted Denzel's versatility. He could dominate a film as the central force, but he could also share the weight with another actor of equal stature without losing any of his power. For audiences, it was thrilling to watch two heavyweights trade blows, not in a boxing ring but through dialogue, posture, and presence. And yet, while Crowe represented the grit and toughness of Denzel's career, another co-star showed his softer, more vulnerable side. Before American Gangster, Denzel teamed up with one of Hollywood's most beloved actors in a film that tackled race, prejudice, and humanity head-on. That man was Tom Hanks. Before Denzel Washington cemented his reputation as a box-office powerhouse, he took on a role that showcased a different side of his artistry. In Philadelphia 1993, Denzel played Joe Miller, a street-smart, somewhat cynical lawyer who reluctantly agrees to represent Andrew Beckett, a man battling workplace discrimination, while also fighting a devastating illness. Andrew was played by Tom Hanks in what became one of the most celebrated performances of his career. The pairing was nothing short of magical. Hanks brought vulnerability, fragility, and quiet strength to Andrew. Denzel, meanwhile, grounded the story with Joe's transformation from prejudice and discomfort to deep empathy and loyalty. Watching the two of them share the screen was like watching barriers break in real time, not just in the story but in Hollywood itself. What makes this collaboration so important is that Denzel didn't just play the supportive role. He matched Hanks beat for beat. His intensity and charisma balanced Hanks's delicacy, creating a powerful emotional core that carried the entire film. Critics often point to Philadelphia as the project that truly opened the door for mainstream audiences to confront uncomfortable truths. And while Hanks walked away with the Academy Award for Best Actor, Denzel's performance ensured that the film never slipped into one-sided storytelling. It was a partnership, not a showcase. Denzel later spoke about how much he admired Hanks's fearlessness in taking on such a groundbreaking role at the time. That respect was mutual. Hanks has often praised Denzel as one of the greatest living actors, even once saying that simply being on set with him made everyone raise their game. Together they proved that cinema wasn't just about spectacle. It could change hearts, shift perceptions, and spark dialogue. And it's that ability to elevate not only himself but also his co-stars that defines Denzel's career. Looking at the 7 actors who shaped Denzel Washington's career, a pattern emerges. Influence comes in many forms. James Earl Jones lit the path, showing a young Denzel what it meant to command a stage with presence and humility. Sidney Poitier opened doors, offering mentorship and encouragement that fueled his confidence. Morgan Freeman demonstrated longevity, versatility, and the power of letting your work speak for itself. Then there were the co-stars who challenged him to reach new heights. Viola Davis matched him with raw emotional intensity. Ethan Hawke pushed him into psychological tension. Russell Crowe demanded a fierce on-screen duel, and Tom Hanks allowed Denzel to explore empathy and vulnerability in ways few others could. Together, these 7 actors weren't just collaborators or inspirations. They were catalysts, shaping the craft, choices, and career of one of Hollywood's greatest living legends. Denzel's story is a reminder that greatness rarely happens in isolation. It's built on mentorship, respect, challenge, and the courage to rise to the level of those who came before you, or stand alongside those who meet you as equals. These actors didn't just influence him, they helped define an era of cinema that audiences will remember for decades. So the next time you watch Denzel command the screen, think about the legacy behind him, the mentors, the peers, the challengers, the equals. And ask yourself, who in your life pushes you to be your best? Just like these 7 actors pushed Denzel Washington,